What's up, everyone? My name is Justin Odisho. Welcome back to another episode of my podcast. Today on the show, we have Chris Howe. That's H-A-U. Chris is a fellow YouTuber, photographer, video creator. You can find him on YouTube, where he's posted over 100 videos, managed to grow his channel to over 400,000 subscribers, and grown a pretty impressive Instagram following as well, over 400,000 subscribers. You can see a bunch of his photography and other content. And I believe you also have, you've been in a band, you've had a creative agency, you've worked with professional clients, all the way from beginner to professional clients. So I'm hoping that we can get into a ton of that kind of stuff today for anyone that's listening, how to grow on social, making videos, making photos. So Chris, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me. I respect what you're doing so much. And then I also love that you're doing all the memes on Instagram. Like, they bring me so much joy. And I think I've always been a big fan of art that sparks a feeling, and the fact that comedy is so powerful, and you've just done such a good job of hitting in on this niche and making it so relatable. I giggle to myself like a child. I'm like, hee, and I send it to some friends. So I don't know, man. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing on Instagram.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. Cause you know what's funny? I wouldn't consider myself a photographer at all. Especially I'm much more started as an editor. So the camera side of things came after for me.
Yep.
And I couldn't compete at all with you have so many awesome photographers like you guys. I'm scrolling through Instagram right now. Beautiful
thanks,
waterfalls and beautiful scenes, crispy and nice colors. So I was like, let me just go the low route and just do funny memes. But have you how do you think about your Instagram?
I'm really proud of my Instagram. It's funny because I'm releasing a video, so I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but I'm working on a video right now that's essentially a thesis around how Instagram is killing creativity. So it's interesting in that video, some of the things I'm going to talk about is that I find that I love my work. I genuinely love it, but I still think some of the things I post are cliches. And things that you expect from Instagram. So what I would say now is I'm very proud of the work I've done, but I've hit this certain level where now I want to push it a step further as an artist, or a step further as the person that I want to become as a photographer. So I would say the groundwork, past Chris has done a great job of laying a good foundation, and now future Chris wants to push the boundaries of his potential as an artist, I would say. So yeah, I'm happy, but there's another level that I'm ready to dig into.
Yeah, I get what you're saying with you gotta constantly reinvent, because you see the same what has worked on Instagram, and then everyone does it. But then I see you experimenting with different posting schedules, or maybe writing stories in the description, or drawing on your pictures, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, you gotta approach it, and also you gotta make it fun for yourself, because we were just talking about this. This is such a healthy part of the creative process, is talking with other creatives. So experimenting with new ideas, or a collaboration, or whatever it might be, I think are all very healthy parts of just developing as an artist.
Yeah. So I did a quick kind of impromptu introduction of you, but I would love to know, because there's so much more to what you do than that label. If you're at a dinner party, or you meet somebody in an elevator or something, and they ask you, what do you do? What do you say instead of what I said?
You know what? I used to have this big pitch where I'd be like, we own a marketing company and we work with clients such as Mercedes-Benz. And now I just I don't care as much. So in the sense of I just tell people I'm a YouTuber now. So I got a new doctor recently, and I went into the meeting. He's like, what do you do for a living? I was like, I'm a YouTuber. And I'm almost I almost enjoy their reaction, because I like to see how people feel about it. So it's weird. It's almost entertaining for me, because I've hit a point where I feel I don't need to sell myself, in the sense that I don't have the same type of anxiety I had growing up, where I'd be I had to prove something. Now I'm whatever. If you like me, cool. If you don't like me, whatever. So I'm at this point where I'm you know what? I'm a YouTuber, and I enjoy that, because I like to see how people react to it. Some people are like, wow, that's so cool, and it's so fascinating what you do. And other people, for example, my doctor's reaction was how's that going for you? And it's there's already a negative connotation to it. So I kind of like the idea that it starts the conversation, and then I can flip it, and I can be it's going great, or it's made a really healthy living, or we have a couple employees now. That's pretty cool. And it definitely flips how people perceive the job of a YouTube as a YouTuber. So now I would say YouTuber, and maybe in a different setting, I might say like I'm a photographer, and in more maybe like a community where I feel safer to say it, I'd be like I'm an artist, because like everything is priming different audiences, and you can read. I'm big on like reading a room. Like I came back from like a career as playing a musician, and the best thing that you can do when you're a musician is learn how to read a room and read an audience. So I do have different responses for different people. I say the YouTuber line more generically to everybody, but let's say if it was someone like yourself, maybe I would say like, you know what, truly I feel like I'm an artist and I'm trying to tell stories, right? But that doesn't always resonate with every single person, right?
Yeah. I change my answer
Yeah.
by the day, depending on who's asking me and the weather.
Yeah, and like what mood you're in. You're like, you know what, I'm just going to say this. I'm a pixel collector, and just see what people say, right?
Yeah. I think there's something about the label. It's like, what does it really mean? Because a YouTuber, it's like, you could be a chef, you could be a musician. But speaking of that, so I mean, you have all these cool guitars behind you. I was just checking them out. But and also one of the oldest videos on your channel is like you playing a guitar while surfing.
Surfing. Oh boy.
That's super cool. But like,
Thanks,
how
man.
did you have a whole career as a musician before this?
Yeah, I mean that's really what I wanted to do. So like kind of touching back on your first question, like if you would ask me what I wanted to do or what I would tell people that I did, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I would tell them like I'm a professional musician. And like I was playing in a band, I was playing shows at bars all the time, I was selling out. Like at the peak of my career as a musician, I would sell out like a room of 200 people to come and watch me sing and play guitar. And that was like, I would get these insane highs from those experiences. It just wasn't like sustainable as like a real career choice, I think, in that era. And like maybe if I had gone along with it, I always felt that the modern day rock star was a YouTuber. So where this all flowed into is that as a musician, I would make my own music videos, and then what I always noticed is people commented more on like how great the videos were and less about the music. Like, cool song, but man, that was a great video. So I think the world was just giving me signals that like I think I was more destined, or whatever you want to say, is that I had a natural tendency to lean more on the video and photo side. And that's really where it started. Like I started as a photographer, then I became a musician, and then I would take that skill set and develop it to promote my music. And then promoting my music, I really was promoting my video work, and then that naturally turned into a career. And then at some point you're like, hey, there's a lot of obvious signs here. You're making money, you're growing a following. Like, why don't you do this? And you get to essentially still be a popular creator. It's just my medium is now video instead of music.
Yeah. Did you feel see, like that's why I started YouTube, is because I just liked sharing stuff.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the underlying seed? Because you use the term popular creator, but is it just like you want to be on kind of a stage to be able to share like what your passions and things you enjoy? Is that the main enjoyment?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm being very like honest with you and being very transparent, I think a lot of it when I was younger came from like a very like ego place where I just probably wanted to just be liked by a lot of people, right? And then you can get into like all the deeper meanings of all those things, but really I just always enjoyed a creative outlet. And one of the fundamental things that happened to me in my life is that these things happen. It's a natural part of the process, but we lost a lot of family members in like a 2-year span. So I lost like 6 family members in 2 years. So I think I always was primed by my parents and by those moments to just like do what you like doing. And at that time I liked making music. So I would just be like, well, other people do this as a career. Why can't I? And life is short, so just go and do it. So, and luckily I had a supportive family that was like, you should go and do this kind of thing. And my dad owned his own business. Both my grandfathers owned their own business. So they're like, whatever, if you can make a business and do what you love and make a living and be happy, go for it, because life is strange, right? So I kind of like always had this mentality where it's like, I just wanted to do the things I was enjoying at the time. And maybe at that point it was a little more ego driven, whereas now like it's very much rooted in just telling great stories and lifting other people up and sharing whatever knowledge I have so other people can also potentially have the opportunity to do similar things. So that's where it's grounded in now. But maybe selfishly when I was younger, I was like, I just want to be liked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think as you get older, you kind of refine it. And like I just started out for fun, and then like now I genuinely want to help people and teach people. Like that's
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. I think everything is like a process, and you look back and you reflect on things, and you're like, oh, that's why I did that. So, yeah, I would say now it's very much like I enjoy the process of creativity. Like I enjoy going and the challenge of going and taking a really cool photo and it coming to life in the vision that I had for it. And the same for a video. If I've put together a script and I really have tried really hard to like, can that translate on screen? So like now I really enjoy the process and the challenge that is being a YouTuber or a photographer.
Yeah. So one thing I want to touch on when you're navigating like these creative industries. So you're playing music, selling out little shows and whatnot, I'm sure able to get by. But obviously when you jump straight on YouTube, you're not like just raking in the bucks.
Definitely not.
What were some of your challenges or ideas on how considering it as your own business, how did you plan to make it sustainable? And when does like the creative agency side of it come into play?
So the interesting thing about YouTube is that it started, like the seriousness of YouTube started while Lizzie, my fiance, and I had a creative agency. So essentially the flow, I'll give you the quick context in the storyline. Musician, hey, I start my own company because people are interested in video. So I start making videos. I make government videos. That starts to grow. All right, starting to do a little less music because I'm starting my own business. All right, this is growing really quickly. Lizzie jumps on board. We scale that bigger, start working with credit unions, banks, Mercedes-Benz, automotive, commercials, like big things. And then right in the middle of that, like at the peak of like, we had a career, if we continued with it, it would have been fine. We'd have an agency. We were doing big marketing things. I reconnect with my good friend Peter McKinnon, and he's like, you should do YouTube. So then I knew that I was basically doubling my workload at the time for the potential for success on YouTube. And it only came from being like, I think I have a shot at being successful here because I have like a mentor in the space that's a friend. I have someone who has like proven from a business perspective that this can be a business, and ultimately YouTube hits a bigger goal of like the shift of power of working with a client. So when you're working on the agency side, you make the thing that they want. Whereas when you are a YouTuber, they want you to find a way to just integrate them into whatever you do. And that is like a very fundamental thing for me that's really important. So I was essentially playing a super long game with YouTube, so where I didn't monetize it. I think I did like 2 brand deals before 100,000 subscribers, and I tried to not make that much money off of it. So essentially we had this job that we had created, this agency that needed 60 hours a week at minimum to like of attention, and I was layering on top of it like 20 to 40 hours of YouTube and trying to hit like 1 to 2 videos a week. And I definitely got gassed in the first 2 years I did it, but it was around the first year where this started to shift and we put a little less in, and then all of a sudden YouTube really did take off.
Yeah. When you say gassed, like burnt out?
Yeah, definitely. In the sense that I just like, I felt the pressure and the point where I would never experience anxiety, and I was very much like a very free-flowing, like happy dude. I really in those years felt the anxiety and the pressure that comes from like trying to build a business, being on a platform, having so many more opinions, trying to please people, like all the stuff that comes, all the things that no one really talks about that YouTube's side effects, I guess. There's lots of, yeah, it's exciting. You make videos, you get views, people watch them, but there's so much more like underlying things that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good points you bring up there. I mean, first of all, you're from Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's like
the Canadian coffee.
here we got in Michigan, we got tons of Tims.
Oh yeah, I heard it's spilling over. It's like climbing down now.
Yeah, I think just because I'm in the Metro Detroit area, there's a Tim's on every corner.
Really? I mean, that's cool. That's
unusual
great
for the U.S. I know.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, so you're from Toronto. You mentioned like first of all, there's so many great creators out there. But you mentioned your friend Peter. But how did you know Peter?
So back in the days of like when I would get hired from like people seeing my music, like one of them was this girl that was a fan that was like, I'm getting married. Can you shoot my wedding? I loved your music video. And I was like, yeah, sure. I need money. Like, so let's do it. And at that wedding, Peter was the photographer and I was the videographer. So Peter was like, it's funny because I think they didn't the couple didn't really care too much about the video, so I was very much like an afterthought. So like I think I was getting paid like $500 or $400 to make like a whole wedding video. And Peter, they put all the money into Peter at the time because he was like the dude for wedding photos, right? So I met Peter because you collaborated. You're like, hey, where are you going to be? And I'm going to be here, and I don't want to get in your way, and vice versa. So we collaborated on that, and then we got to sit down at dinner together because you get all the same people get looped together at the same table, usually at weddings. So Peter has a photo of when we first met at the dinner table on his phone somewhere, and then we really hit it off because we both loved Angels and Airways and Blink-182. So that was always this like super common ground, as we both like were so insanely passionate about Tom DeLonge's music.
I have this theory that like everyone, because almost half of my friends and colleagues here, like we all play guitar, we all like making videos, there's like something that loops it all together.
Yeah, I think there's always like a common ground of like either it's like filmmaking and skateboarding, or music and filmmaking, or like I don't know what it is, but I just find there's always an overlapping, like you kind of start off in one area as a creative, and it like everyone has similar interests, because I think at the time, especially like Peter, he's older than I am, but there's like cultural things, like whether it was like CKY or it's Jackass or it's, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and like punk rock music, like these were the popular things at the time. So you find these very similar interests and they overlap pretty quickly.
Yeah. And would you say like how many years ago was that, would you say?
I'd say like a decade.
Yeah.
Like I think I was like 18, 19. So I'm 29 now. So probably like 10 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. So it's really cool thinking about, how different relationships can like go in unexpected places and change your life.
I think about that. I was in the middle of nowhere, Ontario at a wedding, and potentially that one moment when I was 18 like changed the course of my life. I think about that a lot.
Yeah. And also you mentioned your fiance who you had a creative agency with.
Yep.
I guess I don't know exactly how you met, but if you want to, but the question I had around it was like, and your fiance also does, her own YouTube and creative work. And that's really cool to me. Like, do you feel like it would be possible for you guys to be doing different things? Like you doing a traditional job or her doing a traditional job and then you doing this YouTube thing, or vice versa? How does that work?
Yeah, definitely an interesting question. It's hard because we've never, like, we kind of experienced it a little bit, where Lizzie worked at a traditional like production house for 2 years in our relationship. And then I was kind of doing, like, I had the agency previous to her jumping on board, and I was just doing my own freelance thing. And it worked out, but it definitely like another level of like connection for us, and I guess like the deeper connection came when we like started the business together and going through those challenges together. But it's funny now, like, so we just moved into this new place, and we used to share an office, so we saw each other every day, and now we have separate offices. So like this is my office, Lizzie is across the hall, she has her office. Although we share the same floor in our house, I actually think it's funny because I like leave my office and then I go downstairs at like 6 p.m. and I'm like, how was your day, honey? Like we came back from our own jobs. Like it's weird. So it happened, and then we've come back to it a little bit, but we still collaborate on a lot of similar things. To answer your question, because I don't think I'm directly answering it, I think we would be okay navigating it, but I think empathy plays a really big role, because if I said, oh, this one comment really bummed me out today, like I don't know if she would feel it at the same level if she didn't also experience that. So I think what is really powerful for our dynamic is that we both go through the same things together, and we can both empathize about like how difficult certain things are in a job that I think maybe if you don't have experience, it becomes a little bit difficult in certain relationships where people were like, yeah, but you know what I had to do today? And it's like, oh yeah, it was just a comment. Like who knows how people react? Yeah. I don't want to project a situation on someone, but I think because we do the same thing, it's brought our empathy to a whole different level, and that helps us connect on a deeper level connection.
So switching gears a little bit, talking about all this stuff, starting and growing. You've grown to such these large audiences over the past several years. But do you remember how you got, like, let's say your first 1,000 or your first 10,000 on Instagram or YouTube, for anyone that's just kind of like in that beginning stage?
Yeah, so let's segment the two because they're a little different. So for like Instagram, my whole thing when I first started on Instagram was that I knew that people would only want to follow you if you made really great content. So like I challenged myself to like post every single day that year. So I think that was like 2017 or 2016 or something. No, probably 2016 is when I first like really started taking it seriously. And I knew that I would only get better by like creating more often. So what I would do is just to get my first 1,000, it was literally like engage with the community, post a lot, make interesting things, go and comment on other people's stuff so that you build this like grassroots level of like community, DM people, be interested in what they do and like genuinely care. And that's how you really build this like fundamental, like hardcore first 1,000 group. On YouTube, a lot of the growth there came from like, I would post those videos, like the viral surfing playing guitar videos, and those would get shared out by publications, and then that would bring in an audience, and maybe people were interested in seeing what's the next thing he'll play guitar on, right? Like whatever it might be. So I didn't really understand branding heavily at that point. So like my audience was always very all over the place, but where I did see like a big spike in my subscribers on YouTube was through collaboration, was by doing things where, one of my first videos, when I got into like, I'm doing photography and video stuff now. I think my fourth video, I did a collaboration with Peter. I like pitched him. I was like, I think people would be interested in like spark photography. And he was like, yeah, people would love that. Let's do it. You come on my channel. I was like, oh, come on your channel and do that. Okay. And then that shout out gave me my first 10,000 subs.
Yeah. Collaboration's really important. I mean, even with me, it wasn't necessarily the same thing, but I was trying to grow my channel, and so in doing that, I was throwing a bunch of ideas at the wall.
Yeah.
And it was through a collaboration that I had like kind of thought about, why don't I share, like I'm doing all this interesting video editing stuff for us to collaborate. Why don't I also teach that? And then like that just took off, funny enough. So I think collaboration is really a good point.
I think there's two takeaways from what you said. There's collaboration, but also like providing value for people, because I think the best way to grow an audience is if people can like attribute their success to you. And I think that's a really fundamental thing where it's like, if I watch one of Justin's videos and he's taught me how to do a certain technique, and then I do that technique for a client and they're really happy, well, now I'm definitely going to follow you for future stuff because you've provided value to my life that's made my life inherently better.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's huge. And also everyone wants tutorials and it's SEO friendly and all the other stuff.
Yeah. I gotta say, not the most charming, I'm good enough, but I'm not the most beautiful man in the world, so we can teach.
I do. Look at that smile, man. It looks good.
I do all right. All right. So the other thing I want to say, so you're in a really interesting position where most of the time, like a creator like myself, my main home base is like YouTube. I'm doing things and experimenting with the Instagram and Twitter, like with the memes and all that. But what's interesting, I think, about you is that you do kind of have both of them that are quite large. Do you see one as the home base or the other, and like the differences between them when it comes to being able to work with brands or monetize, I'm sure, are quite different. How do you think about that?
I mean, truthfully, I look at them both as a home. It's hard to say. Like I think I like I think there's longevity in YouTube. So I think there's a longer career in YouTube. But right now, I'm definitely like parked in home at both those places, and I treat both of them as like very strong pillars of my brand. So I think where you'll see my career last the longest is on YouTube, but where I spend a lot of my time, I divide both very equally. So to answer the second part of your question, the monetization on both is very interesting and it's very different. So like I find that I work with, it's hard to say, let's say on Instagram, I work with like more universally known brands. So it will be like the Mercedes-Benz, the Grey Gooses, these more like internationally acclaimed brands want to work because they really appreciate the photography that I and how I shoot and the way I edit my photos, because a lot of the times they want to license those photos for their own work. And so there's this like dual relationship where they're paying for the distribution, my brand, endorsement, but also the content itself, they want to like repurpose for their own stuff. Now on YouTube, the brands are different. I have worked with the Grey Gooses, I have worked with those other brands, but there's a different shift in the relationship there in the way that you like tell stories and the way that I share stories. So, it's a little less that brands want to like license the footage that I've done on YouTube, but it's more that they're really looking for that brand alignment and brand endorsement in a video in an organic way. So both are very powerful. Both make very similar money in terms of like revenue that they bring in for my like company, and I get joy in different ways from both of them. And because I really love taking photos, like genuinely love the art form that is a single photo with a bunch of pixels in the way that you put it together versus like moving images and audio and music and like that experience, because they're such different forms of art. And I think I enjoy both more, but if I had to pick, I probably would lean a little bit more on the photo side.
Yeah. How did you, because we haven't even touched on this, we just kind of assumed it, but how did you even learn all this, like, the traditional aspect of photography and framing a photo and composition? Did you is it self-taught, or did you study it a little bit?
I think it just comes with like years and years and years of doing it. So like the first, I don't know if I have it here. I wonder if I do. I probably don't. But the first camera I ever got, I was like 9. I think when I like got my first digital camera. Do you guys have like a company in the States called Toys R Us? Is that a thing?
Yeah, we had Toys R Us.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if that was a Canadian thing. So like Toys R Us had this little digital camera. It was called Digital Blue. It shot 360p video. It could only hold 5 minutes of it, and it would take like maybe 50 photos. And I just would start shooting my family trips. I would start going to the auto show because I loved cars even at that time because my dad was super into it. I'd make all these videos and just start learning how to compose just for the fact that I had a camera in my hand since I've been like 8 or 9, right? And the years of experience of like, all right, taking photos that look good, and then upgrading cameras. Well, then I got a point and shoot, a little Sony Cybershot. Then the Cybershot turned into a Nikon D80. Then the D80 turned into a Canon 7D. And then the 7D turned into an A7S, and so on and so on. And you just keep learning by shooting all the time. And I would say that my experience comes a lot from being self-taught mixed with just trial and error so much. Because I think there could have been better ways of me learning the craft of photography or videography by like doing more tutorials online. Like I always say that I haven't put the effort in to learn certain techniques because I just want to like try to learn how to do it myself without someone telling me how to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And now there's a shift where I'll watch a tutorial, I'll buy a course, I'll learn how to do things properly, and it's all through the internet. Now, I don't want to discredit that I went to university. I studied radio and television arts, and at university, at least this university, they still did teach you like very technical skills, and you would walk away with like, this is how you do a 3-camera setup, and this is how you do EFP or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but basically that's like freelance video work, camera on tripod, light up, 3-point lighting, all that kind of stuff. So I would learn certain technical aspects at school, but really it came from like, I had a YouTube channel when I was in university called The LMA Show, which was like big fans of Andy Samberg. We made like 100 skit episodes of things. It was from making YouTube videos for my music. It was from making corporate videos. It was from making all the friggin' time. That's where like I developed the skit or the skill set.
Yeah. And I think even, just the experience. And even for me, the thing that's taught me the most is having to constantly teach others. For years. Otherwise, I wouldn't wake up every day and think, let me know the software like the back of my hand. And so what can I teach today? What can I teach today? And
Yeah, exactly. You learn by having to teach other people how to learn. Like, what tutorial do I make this week? And then you learn, right?
Yeah. Bit of a Ponzi scheme I'm running here. I'm just kidding. So you've been, there's a couple points I want to touch on. Like, okay, working with these big brands, big official brands, do you have, like, it's probably intimidating at first for anyone when a client comes in with a contract and all this like stuff you got to sign. And how do you go about navigating a professional client from like, just shooting for a friend or shooting someone's wedding? Do you have someone helping you with contracts? Do you do everything yourself? Negotiation, all these points.
I think looking back, I really wish I had like a proper mentor. The issue is that my parents aren't creative in the sense that like they never worked in like a creative industry. So like, yes, my dad runs his own business, but he does software implementation. So he doesn't really come in front of contracts and licensing or anything like this. And we didn't really have anybody in our network or our family network that could help with this kind of thing. And generally I was always really intimidated that if I asked a lawyer for help on a contract, that they would come back with the exact payment that I was getting just to review the contract. So like a lot of the times I was just afraid to ask. So what I would say like to anybody who is listening to this podcast that is interested in figuring out is like, just put it out in the world that like you're young, you don't know exactly what's happening, and if anyone can just assist you or help you, because most people just want to help other people. And a lot of the times if you just make it known that like, I'm just getting started, people will probably just like throw you a bone and help you out and like, throw you a freebie for the chance that you don't get screwed long term. And I would say that I, again, learned the business side of this just by making mistakes pretty often. So I would trust my gut on what I thought the best decision was, and then I would go through the experience, and if I got screwed, I learned a very big lesson, and I learned how to navigate it moving forward. So like I always think it's important, like no matter where you are in your career, if your like long-term goal is to be like a photographer or videographer and work with big brands, like start as soon as possible so that you can just get the mistakes out of the way. Because you're gonna make them. Like absolutely it's gonna happen. So at least if you can try to push through it a little bit quicker, go through it. And then the nice thing is about like 2021 is like, not every person in the world is gonna respond to you, but at least if you DM like 10 people about your problem, you'll probably get one response back and someone will give you some advice that helps you.
Yeah. I think, I think you have some helpful videos on your channel too about like more technical negotiations and pricing I saw, so people should check those out.
And also there's just like courses out now that people have made where it's like you can buy a course on contracts probably for like $50 or $200, and like, oh man, if you're like double thinking that you want to spend $50 or $200 on a course, if you learn a single thing from a course, it is going to pay you back tenfold. So like, don't be scared to invest money into those things, because it will come back and make you more money long term.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a client could ask for, negotiation wise, a client could ask for one budget and you could literally get twice as much, and maybe you learn that from like a $50 course or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think the same way. So speaking of like growing and navigating and all this and like what you've learned on the way, you've probably seen, I mean, first of all, you said like DMing people. What do your DMs look like as a larger page? Are you even able to keep up with them? And also, how have you seen the platform change? Because you said when you were growing your first 1,000 or 10,000, it was a lot of like, it was a different kind of community. You were DMing people, hashtags have come in and out of style, or like the carousels and then the videos and then the stories. Like, how do you keep up with all this and have seen it change? It's a bit of a nebulous question, but you get what I'm touching at?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting landscape now. I'll try to make sure I address all your questions, but just my first initial thoughts. It's an interesting landscape now because I felt like even in 2018, 2017, it was like you posted photos on Instagram, you made a YouTube video. And now it's like you post a photo on Instagram, you got to do daily stories that show the BTS of what you're doing. You got Reels, which will help you grow. So now you got to make YouTube or Reel content. Now there's TikTok. Well, everyone's jumping on TikTok. So now you're doing TikTok too. Then you got Twitter. Then you got your website. Then you got like, there's so much more. Like it just felt way more streamlined in the past where it was like, I do this, I make my money. Cool. Right? Now it's spanning your attention span. So a lot of it comes with being like, really got to pick your homes and really pick your places where you're like your strengths are and just double down on those things rather than trying to spread yourself too thin. To answer the question about like what do DMs look like now, like I mean it's definitely it's definitely interesting. Some DMs will cut through and we'll have conversations and chat. It's interesting to see. A lot of people always want feedback on their work. And like, that's just something that I don't have the capacity for. Like, not only in my life right now do I have to manage a home, employees, I have a fiance, I got 2 cats, like we're doing all this other things, and then we're building YouTube videos. I got daily Instagram posts, like I just said, like all the upkeep of social these days. And now people want like to respond to every single photo and be like, what could I be doing better? How do I develop my business? So one thing I had to realize is like, I can't get back to everybody. I'll do the odd one if I'm in the right mood, or if I'm chilling and maybe I'm at the airport or wherever I am, just relaxing, I'll respond to a few. But I would say I probably get like 50 to 100 DMs every single day of people asking like for help in terms of like, what do I do next? I watched this video. Give me a shout out. Like it's all these things.
Yeah. I guess that just speaks to like, you know, the power of making a video to try to maybe help 1,000 people or 10,000 people, rather than not being able to literally answer every single question. And also, if you're on the viewer side, there is so many resources available that, you know, try as best as you can to like YouTube it or search it. And someone like you or I has probably tried to address it in some form.
Yeah, I'm always very grateful for every fan, and I'm grateful for every single DM. But it's kind of like I don't know what the effect would be called, but like the moment you open the door to like responding to one, and then everyone's gonna start doing it too. So you have to manage that in some capacity. But I will also say that every story, like I pretty much more or less read most of them, and you can get a sense of where it's going. But like there's always the odd story that is like authentic and super genuine, and it's very much comes from the heart or a real place, and like I'll open those and I'll respond to those people. And what I like to do is, rather than like text responses, I always send video DMs. So I'll always be like, yo man, thank you so much for sending that. That actually means the world to me. Or maybe one person sends me a message and they accredit, like we were talking about earlier, some sort of success in their life to something that a video that I've done or something like that. Then I'll respond back and be like, man, go get it. You're crushing it. Like go and chase it down, or whatever it might be. That's a very generic response, but you get the sense of like, there is always going to be the right story and the right message coming from the right intent that I will open up and respond to.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, there's all those new features now, like the voice notes and whatnot. All right, so I feel like we've touched on a lot of good things. There's tons of valuable information I think that you've told about. Wrapping up here, I would love, this is kind of an oddball request.
Yeah.
Can you play us something on the guitar?
Oh,
or are
man.
they not tuned? Either that, or you have an option to just tell us what kind of challenges or navigation you're working on next, because now you're kind of at that like, you know, 500,000 follower mark. Are you just going with the flow? Is everything good? Are you like, you just got this new studio, so are things about to be a ton different? Close it up for us with a show.
Yeah, for sure, for a show, a performance. I will try to play a little bit of like a guitar riff for you, just something like fun here.
Yeah.
But in terms of like next steps, I've just been like, a big thing that I've been doing in the last little while is like developing more of my own products, and rather than trying to do so many like brand sponsorships, I'm really trying to like develop my own things that I can give back to the community. So whether that's presets, whether that's LUTs, whether that's motion graphics templates, whether that's courses, like I'm working on, I'll give a little sneak peek at a course I'm working on right now, but I'm gonna do like the business of car photography and really talk a lot about how to even just get into that space and start working with potentially like brands like Mercedes-Benz, or work with brands like Volvo, and how you go from Mercedes and work your way backwards to actually build out the plan to get there, and then what it's like to navigate those clients and how to eventually like get there, right?
Sing a whole song off the about client work. Have you thought about that? That'd be funny.
I'm trying to do more like creative things and push myself. I think comedy has been like a really big thing in the last little while, and I've been really trying to like do intros that pull people in and make them laugh, and then just trying to do a different spin on different, you know, approaches to things. So right now I'm doing reviews. I'm trying to make them like funny. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm just trying to enjoy this job as much as possible because I think there was a time where I was like very stressed out, and now it's just like this is really fun. Like remember why you started pretty much at the end of the day, right?
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, man.
Don't mean to put you on the spot. I just literally just thought, what can I do to
have some fun with it.
To really throw a wrench in this ending.
I wish I had it like some inspirational thing at the end while the music really builds up.
It sounded inspirational, but any final thoughts or words, or where do you want the people to go and do if they've listened thus far?
I mean, all the typical channels, if you look up Chris Howe, H-A-U, on YouTube or Instagram, but mainly like I just revamped my website. So if you go to thechrishowe.com, like we're putting a lot of time in there now. We're putting blog posts up. We have a whole bunch of free giveaways. So if you guys want like free presets, have motion graphics templates, music, like I have a whole pack you can get on my website for free just so that you can go and create certain things. And then there's a monthly newsletter where you get to see the build out of my office, and I'll give you little tips on how to navigate your business. That's what's up.
Awesome. Thank you so much Chris for coming on. That was lots of fun, honestly. And I'll leave all those links in the description to Chris's stuff for anyone that's listening. You can find this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes if you want to play it back or check it out otherwise. My name is Justin Odisho. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Cool.